fanatical faith, hunting monsters, battles from the void, and a war against the warp itself. These Space Marine chapters are the unyielding shield of the Imperium, their deeds and mysteries living in the legend. In the unforgiving depths of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, there exist warriors whose renown precedes them. But even among the Space Marines, there are those who stand out from the rest. Some of them fight, driven by fanatical faith, while others hunt monsters that threaten the very existence of the Imperium. There are those who emerge from oblivion, leaving only burning trails behind, and those who guard against the very evil from beyond reality. These warriors are unlike the others. They break the usual rules, take extreme measures, and leave more questions than answers. Who are they, and what makes them so unique? Discover in today's video. Let us begin with those whose faith in the Emperor is so absolute that they wage a never-ending crusade through centuries and stars. They are known as a stubborn and independent chapter who care little for the opinions of others. Firmly believing that Primarch Guilliman sought to weaken the proud legacy of Rogal Dorn, the Black Templars are one of the few Space Marine chapters that rejected the Codex Astartes in favor of the organizational structure and doctrines chosen by their leader and founder Sigismund. Unlike other chapters which revere the Emperor as their creator and the lawful ruler of the Imperium, the Black Templars believe he is worthy of worship as a deity. All Space Marines are known for their fervor and dedication, but the excessive faith of the Black Templars can be described as nothing less than fanaticism. The Black Templars have no homeworld. Instead, they are stationed on numerous battle barges and strike cruisers. The Black Templars do not adhere to an organizational structure of 10 separate companies, each with its own ship. The chapter is divided into several temporary formations known as crusades, bearing only a distant resemblance to the organizational structure of the Codex Astartes. Each crusade is led by a marshal, a rank roughly equivalent to a captain, while the High Marshal, the chapter master of the Black Templars, is responsible for directing the progress of all current crusades. High Marshal Helbrecht embodies the persistence, ambition, and unwavering loyalty to the Emperor that are the distinguishing characteristics of the Black Templars. His rise through the ranks of the chapter was swift, and his desire to kill the Emperor's enemies was marked by frequent bouts of fury. After the death of High Marshal Cordell, at the hands of a frenzied berserker, the marshals of the Black Templars gathered to choose a new leader of the order. Helbrecht was elected unanimously and was handed the sword of the High Marshals. Following tradition, Helbrecht soon declared a crusade targeting the Xeno-infested Ghoul stars, a desolate region of space from which no expedition had returned. Over the span of 8 years, the Black Templars purged all border systems. The enemy could not withstand the fervor of Helbrecht's forces, leaving burning planets in their wake. No sooner had Helbrecht turned the Xenos homeworld into a titanic funeral pyre than he received a desperate call for aid from the besieged world of Armageddon. The message spoke of the return of the Orc warlord Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka. Without hesitation, Helbrecht declared a new crusade and took a great oath to personally kill Gazkul and rid the Imperium of the most dangerous Orc warlord to ever live. Upon arriving in the besieged Armageddon system, Helbrecht assumed command of all the assembled Adeptus Astartes fleets. With his exceptional experience in space warfare, he was the logical choice to lead the fleets of Space Marines. The war in space boiled down to fierce battles, as Helbrecht personally led many boarding operations against Orc cruisers, stemming the tide of green-skinned reinforcements to the planet. Following this, Gazkul's flagship left Armageddon, despite all attempts by the Imperial fleet to prevent the enemy warlord from entering the warp. Helbrecht vowed that Gazkul would not escape his vengeance, even if it meant chasing the Orc warlord across the entire galaxy. Merrick Grimoldus, a veteran of hundreds of wars, only took the mantle of the High Chaplain of the Black Templars a few decades ago. A great responsibility rests upon his shoulders, and he constantly seeks to prove worthy of such an honor. Unlike many brother chaplains, Grimaldus prefers to inspire warriors through deeds, not words. On the rare occasions when Grimaldus does speak, his commanding voice draws universal attention. The brevity of his speeches ensures that no word goes unheard. Grimaldus's oratory resonates directly within the souls of his warrior brethren, which is why it was no surprise that the previous High Chaplain named Grimaldus as his successor before his death. While High Marshal Helbrecht fought orcs in space, Grimaldus led the Black Templars forces deployed on the ground. Before the war's end, the Hive City's inhabitants bestowed upon him the title of hero, bowing at his approach. There is no battle so bleak that he could not alter its course and reignite the fire in his brethren's hearts. And then the enemy, already thinking himself victorious, once again finds himself under the crushing onslaught of a wave of fanatical warriors, whose arms swell with newfound strength. Grimaldus marches at their head, paving the way to yet another victory in the name of the Emperor. At the forefront of the Black Templars fights a solitary figure, wielding a resplendent blade, carving a devastating path through the enemies. This warrior is ready to challenge any adversary, no matter how mighty, for he is the Emperor's champion, with divinity resting upon his shoulders. Although some who have fought alongside the Emperor's champion whisper that these individuals walk in shadows, half possessed by a curse of supernatural vengeance, granting them a terrifying life. Only a few Emperor's champions emerge in a century, their appearance being a miracle worthy of remembrance, and only one champion can exist at a time. This is why the chaplains are obliged to ensure that a black sword is prepared at the start of each crusade in case a new Emperor's champion arises. When this occurs, the name of the new bearer of the blade is inscribed upon the obsidian hilt of the sword, immortalizing the hero as part of the weapon's own legend. When the Emperor's champion fights, every muscle swells with divine power, his gaze clouded with a golden glow that burns most brightly around the strongest foes. Thus, the Emperor's champion cleaves through to them, scattering lesser adversaries in his path. He disregards the marshal's orders and the objectives of enemy forces. He has but a single aim: to slay the mightiest foes that may stand before him. The Emperor's champion will never acknowledge defeat, for his duty does not end until the black sword is pried from his cold, dead hands. The Black Templars are not organized like most of the Codex Astartes chapters, and in many aspects they do not adhere to the tenets of the Codex Astartes. These differences are particularly pronounced in the recruitment, training, and combat deployment of their warriors. Most of the Black Templars' battle brothers, referred to within the chapter as the Initiates, form Crusader squads, which are the mainstay of any strike force. Many Crusader squads are honored to go into battle under the command of one of the chapter's sword brethren, veterans whose deeds and accomplishments inspire the Initiates to even greater displays of valor. Crusader squads are predominantly armed with holy bolters, but given the Black Templars' love of melee combat, many prefer to wield chainswords and other weapons more suited to perilous close-quarters battle. In this, they epitomize the righteous zeal of the Black Templars and their drive to smite their foes. After several battles, independent groups of neophytes are often formed within Crusader squads, akin to the scout squads of Codex Astartes chapters. These units are tasked with infiltrating enemy positions or undertaking certain other critical missions. Having proven their courage and prowess, a neophyte stands before the chaplains to undergo the final purity test before, in an extraordinarily solemn ceremony, joining the ranks of full-fledged battle brothers and earning the right to don power armor. At this moment he truly becomes a Black Templar, endowed with immense power and sworn to use it in the service of the Emperor until death. But what if the enemy is too dangerous even for the Black Templars? Here, specialists are needed, ready to face horrors that must not reach the Imperium. The Deathwatch is a Space Marines chapter, but it is different from any other existing chapter. There are many things that set the Deathwatch apart from its brethren. The first of these is that the chapter brothers are not permanent members. They are seconded from other chapters to carry out a specific mission or for a certain period. Not all chapters provide their battle brothers to serve in the Deathwatch, but for those that do, service in it covers both the individual brother and his chapter as a whole, with great glory. To serve in the Deathwatch is such an honor that many continue to wear its distinctive heraldry on their shoulder even after returning to their home chapter. The second unique feature of this chapter is that the Deathwatch is exclusively dedicated to fighting Xenos. This does not mean that the chapter avoids battles with other enemies. It is simply that missions against the numerous and diverse Xenos races threatening humanity take priority for them. Those warriors who join the Deathwatch are the most experienced in fighting aliens. They have already faced all types of Xenos threats head-on and emerged victorious. The Deathwatch warriors are among the most powerful defenders of humanity, without whom thousands of Xenos races could have crushed the human race many centuries ago. The final, and perhaps most significant of all the differences between the Deathwatch and other chapters, is that their missions are assigned not by a chapter master responsible only for his brethren, but by the Inquisitors of the Ordo Xenos. This division of the Inquisition is primarily concerned with the detection, study, containment, and destruction of Xeno threats, and the Deathwatch is sometimes referred to as its military chamber. The Deathwatch has at its disposal all the resources available to any other chapter, and even more. However, it is organized in a completely different way, most suitable for its unique task. The key tactical unit of the Deathwatch Space Marines is the Kill Team. This is a small and highly versatile group of warriors, extremely dedicated to their mission and to one another. The commanders of the Deathwatch are among the most experienced Space Marines fighting against Xenos across the galaxy. Even before serving in the Deathwatch, a Deathwatch commander was likely already of the rank of captain, and some were even chapter masters. Theoretically, the position of commander within the Deathwatch is temporary, as are all roles within the Deathwatch. Nonetheless, most who assume it understand that they may never return to their home chapter. Such is this important and heavy burden. Moreover, it is a very lonely duty, for the Watch Commander sees numerous battle brothers serve under his command and then return to their chapters, knowing full well that he himself will likely never experience this. Watch Commanders possess immense authority and bear enormous responsibility, for they have access to archival records that are generally only available to the Inquisition. They have full knowledge of the terrible threats they face, knowledge shared only with those whom the upper echelons of the Inquisition fully trust. The Inquisition and Adeptus Astartes listen to them, and they have the authority to destroy an entire sector. They and they alone know the access codes to the sealed vaults at the heart of every watch fortress, and in their hands rests the power of Exterminatus. Watch captains are battle brothers who, having served in a kill team, have earned respect and participated in numerous Deathwatch operations. It is common for the most experienced battle brothers to be called to serve in the Watch several times, and it is to such veterans that the honor of becoming a Watch captain is most often bestowed. Upon accepting this title, a warrior understands that he will not be able to return to his chapter for many years, and the time during which he serves as a Watch captain is considered a special assignment in itself. The duty of a Watch captain is to oversee the actions of one or more kill teams. He is responsible for everything concerning their recruitment, training, equipping, and deployment. It is also the duty of a Watch captain to record the accomplishments of battle brothers in combat and, if possible, ensure that the remains of a fallen brother are returned to his chapter with due honors. In most cases, the Watch captain observes the mission's progress, usually from an assault Thunderhawk, equipped to simultaneously serve as a command center, medical post, arsenal, and holding cell for captured enemies. From his gunship, the Watch captain can control the mission's progress, and through sensors embedded in power armor, he sees what each battle brother sees directly. He can also monitor the physical condition of his warriors to ensure that no biological contamination spreads upon their return. When Watch captains take to the battlefield, their mere presence can alter the course of the battle. The Watch captain is both a leader with vast experience in commanding forces and an inspirer of heroic deeds, as well as a fearsome warrior. Any horror the galaxy can oppose to him, he has already encountered and withstood, And even in the face of a monstrous Xeno threat capable of annihilating an entire army, he remains steadfast and immediately identifies its most vulnerable point. Deathwatch captains are among the most heroic servants of the Imperium, even if their names and deeds remain unknown to anyone but their battle brothers. Watchmasters are the most notable figures in the watch fortresses. They guard areas closed to ordinary battle brothers and stand watch over captured Xenos imprisoned in dungeons. Even an Inquisitor cannot pass by a Keeper without special permission from the Watch Commander. The Keepers are held in the highest trust, for they protect the most sacred and unholy things under the Deathwatch's charge. They fulfill a sacred duty that in other chapters is often taken on by librarians, apothecaries, and tech marines. However, within the ranks of the Deathwatch, such specialists are too few, and the burdens placed upon them are already overwhelming. Instead, this burden falls upon battle brothers who have served the Watch for many decades. Keepers are entrusted with all manner of things important to the Deathwatch, from captive aliens to starships transporting kill teams through the warp. A Watchkeeper is, first and foremost, a veteran space marine, an extraordinarily gifted warrior who has spent many years in service. In many fortresses, Keepers are equipped with ceremonial weapons and armor that clearly demonstrate their status. Often they are armed with long power glaives, two-handed chain swords, or even incredibly ancient spears, and adorned in richly decorated robes that drape over their armor, leaving their heads and pauldrons exposed. Upon their helmets is depicted the imperial aquila, or the symbol of the Deathwatch, cunningly forged into the faceplate. Beneath the robes, they wear power armor of the earliest and most revered types, dating back to the days of the Great Crusade. Their weapons and armor are extensively adorned with esoteric seals. Different Keepers may perform a wide variety of duties. The most martial among them are often tasked with containing and controlling alien prisoners held in the Watch Fortress for interrogation and vivisection. They will study specialized methods of restraint and pain reinforcement from apothecaries and Inquisitors to better control their captives, as well as detailed information on their care and feeding to ensure they do not die prematurely. The most trusted Keepers guard doomsday weapons, both Imperial and of Xenos origin, locked within the Deathwatch's vaults and armories. Despite such significant responsibility, the Watchkeepers are not exempt from missions within a kill team, which suits them perfectly. The unique knowledge acquired by the Keeper during the fulfillment of their duty can distinguish between a successful mission and its failure. Not every Xeno crisis requires the intervention of an entire kill team, but many seemingly insignificant incidents can be harbingers of a more serious threat, and it would be reckless to ignore them. In light of these circumstances, the Watch Captain may decide to send a single specially trained Deathwatch brother, adept at solo operations, who will find and eliminate the problem or call for reinforcements if it is indeed necessary. The distinct feature of such space marines is that they do not acknowledge the reliable fire support which their battle brothers rely upon, and they primarily resort to cunning and methods of covert infiltration, mastered during their time as scout recruits. The best warriors of the Deathwatch often emerge from scout sergeants who have undergone some additional training, but if necessary, any Deathwatch member can become such a specialist. Among the Deathwatch warriors, there are those who do not bear the chapter symbol, while other battle brothers proudly display their heraldry. Only the faceless blackness is visible on their right pauldrons. Only the silvered skull of the Deathwatch marks the loyalty of these black shields, warriors who keep to themselves from other space marines until the time of battle arises. These battle brothers are rarely found in the Watch, and some even consider their presence an ill omen. According to ancient tradition, a space marine with worn heraldry may present himself to the Watch Commander and request to join the Deathwatch. He will not be asked questions, nor will there be any attempts to force a revelation about his origins. All such information is considered destroyed once the chapter symbol is erased. A black shield is a space marine without a chapter, a warrior who has severed all that made him a brother of the Adeptus Astartes. What the supplicant shares with the Watch Commander forever remains a secret between them. However, not every black shield discloses anything beyond his name and basic proficiencies. The commander has the full right to refuse him, but it happens rather infrequently. The Deathwatch is open to all chapters, and for those who belong to none, It offers a path of redemption. For the rest of their lives, Black Shields will serve as guardians, protecting humanity from Xeno threats. And as a reward, they may perhaps earn the right to someday be interred in the tomb of the fallen, in the great fortress of the Watch. Thus, at least in death, the Black Shield may restore the bonds of brotherhood that he once chose to sever. Black Shields are quite rare, and throughout his life, a commander may encounter only a handful of these warriors. Little can compel a Space Marine to become a Black Shield, and speculations about his motives will follow him everywhere he goes. They all share one common trait, a fierce desire to erase their past through service in the Deathwatch. They assert that the grueling regime of prayers and self-flagellation between training sessions helps them fortify their bodies and spirits for the battles to come. In combat, they disregard wounds and dangers, striving with all their might to fulfill the kill team's objectives. No Space Marine ever rushes heedlessly into battle, always knowing his own place in the great struggle against the enemies of humanity. If, however, recklessness or self-sacrifice prevails over them, then the battle brother, without hesitation or fear, will take this destructive path. That is why the Black Shield will always put himself forward as bait for the enemy or draw enemy fire upon himself. He seeks no personal glory and will do nothing that would harm his kill team. Yet he is always ready to sacrifice his life if circumstances require it. For himself, he has already died, and the value of his life is determined by how best he can serve the Deathwatch. The Battle Brothers of the Deathwatch wage war against the Xenos in the darkest corners of space, unleashing a power that no Inquisitor could hope to demonstrate. In these missions, Ordo Xenos and the Deathwatch act in unison. Inquisitors lure the enemy, and the Deathwatch destroys them. Neither holds sway over the other. They work together for a common purpose in accordance with vows made centuries ago. They both cooperate closely, eternally vigilant for that fateful day when prophecies shall unfold. What if I told you that not all defenders of the Imperium are visible on the battlefield? There are those who appear suddenly and just as swiftly vanish, leaving only flames in their wake. You might have already guessed of whom I speak, if not, listen closely. There exists a legend, secretly told by the few and the suspicious, a story of the otherworldly forces loyal to the Emperor, of an army woven from flames and thirst for vengeance, of a brotherhood of warriors who, though they appear as Space Marines, prove 100-fold deadlier than any Astartes. These warriors emerge when hope is dying, as if coming from the afterlife to bring retribution to the Emperor's foes. Having fulfilled their bloody duty, they disappear, once again becoming part of legend. It is said that these warriors dwell in the space between our world and the realm of the warp, in the hopes and dreams of desperate souls, in a pocket dimension lit by the flames of their eternal hatred. Few have witnessed their sudden and crushing blows, and fewer still retained their sanity thereafter. This force is known simply as the Legion, or to be precise, the Legion of the Damned. Little can be said for certain about the Legion, though some facts have been extracted from collated reports of their appearances. They always strike to save a part of the Imperium from disaster, implying they possess the gift of prophecy, unmatched even by the most gifted of seers. And each time the Legion of the Damned appears on the battlefield without warning. Emerging from sulphurous clouds of swirling fire, they march into battle from oblivion in armor adorned with symbols of doom. With terrifying efficiency, they exterminate their foes, wasting not a single word or motion. Among the sages of the Imperium, various rumors circulate about the true nature of the Legion. Some of the scholars studying the history of the Adeptus Astartes considered the Legion of the Damned an embodiment of psychic constructs unleashed into reality. Events such as the slaughter at Istvan or the death of the Primarchs were so horrific that they left indelible scars on the souls of all the original founding legions. These scars, if the theories are to be believed, are so profound that they not only occurred on the souls of the first Astartes, but were also inherited by hundreds of chapters founded after the cataclysm of the heresy. The Space Marines who remained loyal to the Emperor are deeply convinced that traitors must pay for their transgressions and that recompense will be brought by hatred and flame. It's quite possible that the librarians of the Adeptus Astartes draw power from this conviction, either accidentally or intentionally bringing it to reality, resurrecting the ghosts of their fallen brothers and granting them the chance to exact bloody vengeance. These sages believe that the ghosts of the Legion are given physical form by the fiery faith of the Space Marines, in the belief that the guilty must be punished. A similar theory exists among more radically thinking individuals who consider the region of the damned to be a sort of collective hallucination, sometimes even a manifestation of the pain of all humanity. They believe that the subconscious power of irrational hope, combined with the latent psychic abilities of humans and the stimulating threat of imminent death, is so strong that it can influence reality. The pivot of this theory is the assumption that although an ordinary human is endowed with mere fragments of spiritual and mystical abilities, the countless trillions populating the Imperium represent some sort of reservoir of psychic energy, which can be tapped into in a critical situation even by those unaware of their actions. And thus arise the spectral Adeptus Astartes, embodying all the hopes and horrors of the besieged Imperium, bearing on their broad shoulders the burden of deliverance and vengeance. This theory is also supported by the well-documented symbols of fire and death on the summoned warrior's armor, usually associated with the Adeptus Astartes. If this hypothesis is true, then the weapons of the legionaries are no more real than they are. Yet the flames that erupt from the imagined bolters are substantial enough to burn the enemies of humanity or tear their bodies apart, just as ordinary bolters would. Such is the dormant psychic power of simple humans. The legionaries are always clad in armor black as the void itself. Wherever they appear, whether in the brightly lit residence of a planetary governor or under the dazzling light of the midday sun, their armor seems to absorb the light that falls upon it. Not even the beam of a powerful searchlight can illuminate it. Only cold fire illuminates the dried bones and skulls that adorn the armor, and the armor itself flickers as if the legionaries have been doused in some flammable substance and set alight. It is likely that this phenomenon has a psychic nature, for the fire blazes brighter when the blades of the legionnaires pierce the flesh of their enemies. In several reports, it was mentioned that at the climactic moments of battle, the legionnaires seemed to transform into pillars of fire, and in such cases the warriors fought with unimaginable fury before succumbing to the flames and vanishing from reality. In close combat, the cursed legionnaires demonstrate true martial prowess, for in addition to their genetically enhanced bodies, they possess the skill and insight that comes with experience. Knives slash through joints and pierce the beating hearts of enemies, bony fingers tear out throats and gouge out eyes, and then, red with blood, they grip the handles of their bolters. Here and there, a thrown knife takes the life of a fleeing enemy. They never aim to wound, only to kill. The legionnaires always attack with such a calculated economy of movement that even the warriors of the Adeptus Astartes can only widen their eyes in astonishment. Although their ornate armor appears no stronger than that worn by regular space marines, the legionnaires ignore blows, capable of felling even warriors in tactical dreadnought armor. Using power blades against them is as futile as slicing through air, and melter beams and plasma discharges pass through as if the legionnaires do not exist at all. Only occasionally does such weaponry manage to find a target and inflict horrific wounds, but it does not even slow the warriors. Those who have witnessed such an otherworldly sight often mistake their saviors for phantoms, but the destruction they wreak quickly dispels any thoughts of their phantom nature. People who have witnessed the attack of the Legion of the Damned are most struck by the fiery fury of these spirits of vengeance. The very air ignites from the shots of their bolters, pierced by lances of terrifying energy. In addition, the legionnaires are armed with a vast array of flamers, both standard and heavy, as well as multi-melters, with which they ruthlessly incinerate enemies trying to hide from their sudden assault. Those foes who simply freeze in fear and realization of their suddenly changed fate are literally torn apart by precise bolter shots. One of the few reliable facts about the Legion of the Damned is that its warriors always appear at a critical moment. Never too early, never too late, and having emerged in the most advantageous positions, They bring death to the enemies of the Imperium. The very thought of reliable and safe travel through the warp has long become an obsessive, mesmerizing dream for the rulers of the Imperium, for its judicious use would drastically alter the fate of mankind and the entire galaxy, allowing armies to move to necessary positions with unimaginable speed. Therefore, it is unsurprising that many within the Ordo Chronos, the division of the Inquisition dealing with temporal anomalies, have been tasked with uncovering the Legion's secrets. Many from this clandestine brotherhood spend their entire lives attempting to track the accursed, and are even willing to sacrifice their lives for a brief conversation with a Legionnaire. However, whenever operatives from the Ordo Chronos come close to their quarry, events seem to conspire to hold them back. Landslides, telekinetic surges, sudden mass aneurysms, and even the inexplicable destruction of vehicles have held back inquisitive minds until the Legion vanishes from the time stream once more. From all this, it becomes apparent that the warriors of the Legion do not wish to be interrogated and possess sufficient power to ensure such an agreeable acquaintance is impossible. It should be noted that after battle, the analysis of recordings revealed a mysterious peculiarity, even in what seemed to be a common battle tactic for the Astartes. Imperial scholars have concluded that Legionnaires are capable of discharging far more rounds than one might infer from the capacity of their magazines. Moreover, even during protracted engagements, no footage has captured anything resembling weaponry loading. Changing the course of the battle, saving those in need of salvation, the Legionnaires simply vanish. Some witnesses recount merely turning away for a moment before the warrior's disappearance, while others tell of the ghostly saviors flickering like a dying hologram prior to vanishing. Accompanying these disappearances are peculiar disturbances that prevent any comprehensive recording of the Legion's exit from the battle. The machine spirits of recording devices that have managed to track the Legion's appearance inevitably end up so tormented that only the most gifted Magos or Tech Marine can breathe life back into them and uncover even a fraction of the secrets. There is yet another exceptional trait of any mass manifestation of the accursed. It quickly erases from memory. If an investigator wishes to gather even some first-hand information, they must interrogate witnesses within days, better yet hours after the event, since all memories of the strange space marines fade away as naturally as a dream or nightmare forgotten upon waking. However, the scent of burnt flesh lingers in the noses and on the tongues of witnesses for weeks, years, or even a lifetime, causing unsettling thoughts whose source they cannot comprehend. Despite the all-too-frequent hindrances posed by strange coincidences to research, the Imperial Archives have accumulated sufficient data, confirming that the phenomenon of the Legion of the Damned continues to surface repeatedly. Each of these appearances is scrutinized in minute detail by the members of the Ordo Chronos, though it must be noted that their investigations yield more questions than answers. One of the most famous appearances of the Legion of the Damned is the battle for the Phalanx. The Phalanx is a formidable ship used by the Imperial Fists as a fortress monastery, which was in orbit around Terra when warsmith Honso and his demonic allies emerged from the warp rift directly into the heart of the ship. A furious battle ensued, during which the recently restored Third Company attempted to repel the boarding attack. The corridors shook with the roar of bolters, but nothing could halt the fury of the demon Prince Be'lakor. Warsmith Honso advanced towards the gunnery decks, intending to use the continent-obliterating guns to bombard the Imperial Palace itself on Terra's surface. Due to the insufficient number of warriors to repel the boarding, the Imperial Fists made an emergency transition into the warp, and the battle continued aboard the Phalanx, hurtling through the howling tides of the warp. It seemed that the beleaguered vessel would soon fall, but spectral fire flared up on the lower decks, incinerating the demons bounding through the corridors. When the flames subsided, the damned appeared in unprecedented numbers and began the cleansing of the iron corridors of the Star Fortress, ruthlessly exterminating the warp-spawned survivors of the initial strike. The Imperial Fists, prepared for a final stand, rallied and launched a ferocious counterattack against Honsu's warriors. Thanks to the efforts of the legionnaires, Chaos was defeated in the battle for the Phalanx, which would subsequently play a significant role in the events of the Horus Heresy. When speaking of the most unusual chapters, one cannot overlook those who stand at the final frontier, when the threat arises not from enemies of flesh, but from the warp itself. The Grey Knights differ from all other Space Marine chapters, as their organization is based on the doctrines laid down by Malcador and the first Grand Masters. They do not follow the Codex Astartes, and their structure, hierarchy, and principles of deployment depend not on the tenets of Guilliman, but on the unique conditions of the war against the Dark Gods. The Grey Knights chapter is divided into brotherhoods, military units roughly corresponding to the battle companies of other chapters. Officially, each of the 8 brotherhoods is composed of approximately 100 Space Marines on active duty, not counting officers. The acting commander ranked as a brother captain, brotherhood's champion, and the Grand Master, who bears overall responsibility for the formation. As with other Astartes chapters, the Grey Knights are assembled into squads of 10 Space Marines, any of which can split into 2 combat squads should the mission require it. It is believed that a detachment of the Sons of Titan maintains its battlefield effectiveness if it retains at least 5 warriors, so even the loss of a third of its personnel does not mean the defeat of the Brotherhood. Its captain will merely need to appoint new commanders and show some flexibility in following the combat doctrines. The decision of which exact units to include in a Brotherhood rests solely with its captain and Grand Master. Nevertheless, it has long been proven that the most successful combination, significantly surpassing all others in effectiveness, is the integration of Purifiers with Terminator and Strike squads. Practically all commanders follow this template, making only minor adjustments according to their tactical preferences. Additionally, Grand Masters occasionally incorporate specialists into the strike force, such as chaplains, apothecaries, tech marines, and librarians. Regardless of the unit type, all Grey Knights are equipped with the same standard gear: Nemesis Force weapons, grenades, storm bolters, and psi-enhanced heavy weaponry. Any combat unit composed of 10 warriors is led by a Justicar. Among the Sons of Titan, such a rank corresponds to that of a sergeant. Beyond direct command duties, he is responsible for honing and focusing the psychic abilities of his subordinate brothers. Often Justicars serve as conduits for various squad spells. The governing and guiding body of the Grey Knights is the Chapter Council. During its meetings held at a table made from ancient oak, gather the 8 Grand Masters of the Brotherhoods and the Supreme Grand Master, typically referred to as the Supreme Grand Master. This is one of the oldest traditions of the Sons of Titan, established by Malcador and his 8 recruits. Although the word of the Supreme Grand Master is law, his appointment is made solely by the unanimous decision of the Brotherhood's commanders. Therefore, a rash or unworthy candidate has virtually no chance of achieving command over the Grey Knights. Each Grand Master, among other duties, oversees the chapter's auxiliary organizations, like the fleet or the armory. However, these are primarily honorary positions, as the mentioned structures do not require constant oversight from above. The main duty of any Grand Master is to lead the Brotherhood in battles. The Grey Knights are widely dispersed across the galaxy, and brother captains cannot simultaneously command all strike forces, so Grand Masters lead the forces in the most critical campaigns where even the most experienced captains would not suffice. Most frequently such occurs when one of the abominations from the Conclave Diabolus is sighted in real space, which includes 101 greater demons, to whom the Sons of Titan pay particular attention. The Grand Master of the First Brotherhood, Varden Kai, holds the title of Warden of the Armory, as his subordinates service and repair the arsenal of war machines, consisting of Land Raiders, Stormhawk Interceptors, Storm Talon gunships, and Storm Raven gunships. Because of this, the Brotherhood's ranks include many of the Order's best pilots, and they are often sought out for assistance when the Grey Knights require armoured or aerial support. To ensure the Order's equipment is always perfectly battle-ready, the Grand Master must oversee the sacred machines and the tech marines who maintain them. The sword-bearing battle brothers, in turn, are trained to fight in impeccable harmony with armoured vehicles. For instance, the foot-borne Grey Knights scatter the ranks of the enemy, after which their pilot brethren unleash volleys of storm bolts and barrages from Godhammer weaponry, tearing apart greater demons crudely emerging from warp rifts. The warriors of the Second Brotherhood, known as the Blades of Victory, hold a well-deserved reputation as masters of rapid deployment and swift strikes, standing out for their speed even among the Grey Knights. With a significant number of strike teams and interceptors in the Second, the Brotherhood employs a mass teleportation tactic to flank and strike at the enemy. The Blades of Victory often fight in the vanguard of joint Brotherhood operations. Charging onto the battlefield, they reclaim a foothold and pave the way for warriors with heavier equipment. As the Fleet Admiral, the Grand Master of the Second Brotherhood, Vorth Mordrak possesses unparalleled talent in maneuvers and deployment, ensuring the Grey Knights promptly arrive at selected combat zones. Armed with vital operational intelligence from the Prognostica's foretellings, chapter squadrons often deploy strike teams in invasion sites before the enemy even appears. The Grey Knights have always held the Third Brotherhood in high esteem. According to legend, it was once led by Janus himself, and throughout a long history, many of the greatest heroes of the Grey Knights have served amongst the Wardmakers. Kaldor Drago was once a brother captain, later becoming the Grand Master of the Third Brotherhood. Currently, Captain Arvan Stern leads the warriors of the formation. Their comrades, directly subordinate to the Warden of the Librarius, Grand Master Aldrich Voldus, manage the Librarium Demonica and train recruits in the techniques of psionic sorcery. Any librarian of the Grey Knights is an incredibly powerful psyker even by the standards of his gifted brethren. He can shatter opponents with the energies of the warp with astounding effectiveness, even tear apart reality itself and cast demons back into the immaterium, sealing the rifts in the process. The Grand Master of the Fourth Brotherhood, Dristan Krom, bears the title Keeper of the Augurium, and within this brotherhood serves many of the chapter's most skilled psykers. Warriors who have an instinctive understanding of the warp, beyond even their comrades. Typically, it is the Fourth's warriors who join the ranks of the Prognosticars, should they be injured or exhibit such prophetic skills that commanders consider these Grey Knights too valuable for the frontline battles. The Space Marines of the Fourth often sense a threat before it manifests, enabling them to relentlessly pursue enemies and set extremely effective traps for them. The ability to anticipate the enemy's moves also enhances the combat skills of warriors, and it is not surprising that many of the most outstanding duelists in the history of the chapter belong to the Prescient Brethren. The responsibility for the chapter's gene seed, its most crucial asset, lies with the Fifth Brotherhood, as it is here that warriors undergo vital apothecary training critical to the chapter. The Guardians also protect the dreadnoughts, within which the mortally wounded Grey Knights continue their service. Rothweir Morven's protector of the Sanctum Sanctorum requires immense humility, as many of the brothers resting in sarcophagi surpass him in battle experience by thousands of years. However, among the fifth fight, even the recently interred Astartes, who learn on the fields of battle how to control the machine spirit of their powerful walker. Wherever these warriors march, the ground trembles under the iron tread of undying warriors who fiercely exterminate any enemies daring to oppose them. Throughout the chapter's history, the warriors of the Sixth Brotherhood have always reflected a relentless pursuit of efficiency and superiority, instilled in every one of their demanding leaders. For the Grey Knights, failed operations or needless losses of fighters are unacceptable, which is why the Grand Master's Council often entrusts the creation of particularly elite and deadly strike groups to the commander of the Rapiers. The Sixth Brotherhood understands that a single specialized unit, deployed in a strategically advantageous position, can inflict damage on the enemy equal to that of an entire army. Instead of destructive artillery barrages and orbital bombardments, the Sixth solves combat tasks through surgically precise attacks by small detachments of highly trained and tested professionals. If deploying larger forces becomes necessary, the rapiers bind the enemy with swarms of thoughtless servitors, allowing the Grey Knights to focus on the most dangerous targets. The Brotherhood is led by Grand Master Anval Laron. The Inquisition and the Grey Knights were founded in the same darkest days of heresy. Both organizations were created to act independently of each other if necessary, yet their goals remain aligned to this day. The Exactors have long collaborated with Ordo Malleus, whereby the esteemed agents of the throne have the right to request the Brotherhood's assistance and frequently do so. In return, the Seventh Brotherhood receives information gathered by the vigilant servants of the Inquisition throughout the Imperium, as well as auxiliary forces when needed. As a result, the Brotherhood, currently led by Grand Master Covan Leorak, often fights with the support of Imperial soldiers requisitioned by Terra's agents, Astra Militarum infantry platoons holding key positions on battlefields, or Inquisitors' acolytes suppressing demonic uprisings. If these brave fighters survive a joint operation with the Exactors, they undergo mind cleansing and serve the chapter indefinitely as servitors. When a neophyte becomes a full-fledged Space Marine, he is generally enlisted into the Eighth Brotherhood. Subsequently, a Grey Knight may transition to another unit depending on his innate proclivities and the disposition of the Grand Masters towards him, or remain a Silver Blade. Such warriors dedicate their lives to relentless training, repeatedly undergoing initiation trials, striving to attain perfection in the art of war. Under the command of Aidan Perdron, they fight in flexible formations, swiftly altering tactics both between battles and during them. The Silver Blades employ all weapons available to them, and never favor any single strategy or maneuver. Their aim is to learn to apply any weapon perfectly, understand the strengths of every strike team, and the weaknesses of all the chapter's enemies. It is said that in war it is perhaps of utmost importance to be in the right place at the right time, and the Grey Knights accomplish this like no other. Guided by the visions of psychers, the Sons of Titan often predict where and when a new demonic incursion will occur. Occasionally, they manage to reach the orbit of the required world, or even land on its surface at the precise moment of a warp breach. However, to contain the otherworldly threat each time requires either sealing and destroying every warp portal or preventing their emergence altogether. To accomplish such tasks, Battle Brothers rapidly teleport directly to the designated objectives. The vanguard of such formations often comprises strike squads. These warriors, clad in lighter armor than Terminators, deliver swift and precise blows to the enemy, penetrating through breaches in their ranks. Before the commencement of battle, the commander of the Grey Knights invariably assigns one or more strike squads to secure a key area or installation on the battlefield. Typically, to immediately capture isolated or inaccessible territories, the forces are deployed using stationary teleporters. However, if such a method of deployment is impossible due to warp disturbances or sorcerous countermeasures, the strike squads advance to positions in cramped Rhino APCs or Razorbacks, which would not accommodate warriors in tactical dreadnought armor. Upon reaching the target, these fighters support the chapter's main forces' advance with a barrage of fire from storm bolters and psi cannons. Strike squads are accustomed to fighting alone, as they often find themselves cut off from their comrades until reinforcements arrive and the landing zone is cleared. Nevertheless, even when the Grey Knights are deep behind enemy lines without communication with their allies, this does not make them easy prey. Entrenched strike squads are extremely difficult to dislodge from their positions. Acting in coordination with one another, they wield devastatingly powerful weapons from the Titan's arsenal, and their astonishing psi powers becoming a highly vexing thorn in the enemy's side. The deployment of strike squads is an integral component of the Grey Knights' military doctrine. Were it not for the vanguard Space Marines, who gather intelligence and conduct preparatory operations on the battlefield, the Terminator-led massed assaults would resemble sledgehammer blows in the dark. When the main forces of the Sons of Titan finally complete their deployment and engage in combat, the strike squads emerge from defended beachheads to launch forays along the flanks of the primary advance, distracting the enemy and preventing potential counterattacks. The bewildered foe, stunned and harried by surgically precise thrusts, can no longer withstand the decisive onslaught of the Grey Knights. All interceptors are equipped with personal teleporters, devices the size of a power pack, enabling warriors to leap from place to place without relying on more traditional and cumbersome stationary teleport systems. This equipment permits the Grey Knights to react instantaneously to changes in the battle's course, traversing significant distances straight across by moving through the warp. Among all the warriors of the Imperium, only the Sons of Titan are capable of employing such technology. To survive in the Empyrean without a Geller field requires incredible fortitude of body and mind. Worse still, the warriors cannot even use the reliable Terminator armor. It is too cumbersome for the use of personal teleporters. Consequently, interceptors must rely first and foremost on their mental resilience to shield themselves from the countless and inexplicable horrors of the warp. Only innate psychic abilities and soul incorruptibility save these Grey Knights from a truly horrific demise. Nevertheless, the tactical advantages of utilizing personal teleporters outweigh the risks. For instance, interceptors can almost instantaneously respond to any enemy maneuver or, having received a brief psychic message from surrounded comrades, leap to their aid and immediately turn the tide of the battle in favor of the Sons of Titan. With crackling warp discharges, these assault warriors return to the real world and descend upon the stricken foe. They cleave heads and sever limbs with mighty swings of nemesis weapons, unleashing hurricanes of ammunition into the enemy's dense ranks. Then the interceptors vanish as abruptly as they appeared, leaving behind only a quiet ethereal hiss and the dismembered corpses of vanquished demons. Given that the role of the spearhead in the chapter's offensives often falls to the Second Brotherhood, there are especially many interceptor squads within its ranks. The Blades of Victory deploy them in conjunction with strike squads, tasking them with harrying the enemy and sowing confusion in their ranks before the main assault begins. There are almost no barriers that interceptors cannot breach or circumvent, and even fewer enemies capable of countering their disorienting attacks. In the Sons of Titan chapter, the Purifiers are entrusted with the most devastating firepower. Each such detachment employs up to 4 units of heavy weaponry in battle. Essentially, the Eradicators differ little from Devastators of other Adeptus Astartes chapters, but are guided by markedly different principles of warfare. In most chapters, service in a Devastator detachment is seen as an excellent opportunity for a novice to acclimate to the battlefield. The situation is different with the Grey Knights. Eradicator's equipment is twice as deadly, 100 times rarer, and 10,000 times more valuable than the relatively widespread gear of Devastators. It is evident that the specialists' Sons of Titan in heavy weaponry must possess even greater resolve and martial skill than their comrades. Moreover, whereas Devastators most often advance in the rear guard of the main forces, seeking advantageous positions for covering fire, Eradicators are required to maintain the pace of the main group of Grey Knights, constantly selecting suitable targets for firing. The Space Marines of Titan understand well that precise salvos of supporting fire can change the course of a battle, so only battle brothers who have proven themselves not only as steadfast warriors, but also as sharpshooters with a steady hand are accepted into the Eradicator's unit. However, keen eyesight is sometimes not enough. By the will of fate, the Grey Knights often go into battles, overwhelmingly outnumbered, and in such conditions, the enemy can quickly encircle the fighters. Therefore, the Eradicator's brothers frequently train their psychic abilities, allowing them to pierce the roiling waves of the warp with their mind's eye, find the adversary, and cover them with fire behind any obstacles. Thanks to such astral vision, specialists often make incredible hits. Psykers alter the trajectory of projectiles and even energy beams in flight, causing them to curve around obstacles. Many enemies who thought they were securely hidden behind a concrete wall or a burnt-out tank suddenly burst apart in bloody fragments. In view of this, many consider the Eradicators the most vivid embodiment of the Emperor's will, for nothing worldly can hinder their punishing shots. If a Grey Knight joins the Eradicators, they will likely never change their place of service. A warrior accustomed to the stance for ranged combat is unlikely to learn to wield a blade adeptly. Grand Masters and brother captains promoted from such units are often easy to recognize. They still use cannons or silencers, long since become an extension of the warrior's right hand. If an officer does switch from heavy weapons to an assault bolter, they will quickly become one of the most accurate marksmen of the Imperium, for to lose the skills of an eradicator is impossible. Aside from the Brotherhoods, there are two more specialized formations within the chapter's structure: Purifiers and Paladins. The first of these are deadly dangerous to the warp spawn. These tainted creatures die from merely touching the warriors. Essentially, the Purifiers can be considered a separate and completely unique, albeit small, brotherhood. Such fighters rarely number more than 40, and an increase in their ranks invariably heralds a demonic invasion of immense scale. If the Purifiers embody the spiritual purity of the chapter, then the Paladins are its champions on the battlefield. Their detachment primarily serves as the bodyguards of the Grand Masters, but they are often ordered to fight alongside the Brotherhoods, as the experience and mastery of the Paladins can sway the tide of even the most desperate battle. The Grey Knights disagree that a warrior is forged in battle. They believe that battles only temper the fighting spirit of one destined for great deeds. Accordingly, a son of Titan needs more than just courage and martial skill to earn a place among the ranks of the Paladins. He must undergo 8 trials, affirming the strength of his character and convictions. Upon completing all trials and the night of celebratory feasting, the newly inducted Paladin leaves his former brotherhood and takes his designated place in the blessed hall of the Citadel. From the moment of elevation in rank, a Grey Knight is obligated to serve not only the chapter as a whole, but also one of the Grand Masters, acting as his champion, bodyguard, and advisor. The latter role is possibly the most important for the Lord of the Brotherhoods, for even among the Sons of Titan, few possess such extensive personal experience in combating the primary enemies of the chapter. Once a Paladin, the Battle Brother is obligated to consistently fight in the thick of battles where the risk of death is greatest. Each of them, without a doubt, engages in clashes with colossal greater demons and armies of warp abominations. Having previously battled more powerful adversaries and survived, present foes instill no fear in him. As for the entire detachment of Paladins, it is akin to an almost unbreakable fortress wall, composed of the most skilled and determined warriors of the chapter. When necessary, they swiftly reposition to protect a comrade, for example, covering an apothecary, collecting the gene seed of the fallen, or escorting a librarian to the source of a burgeoning otherworldly incursion. Perhaps it is the Emperor's design that there exist a small number of space marines capable of fighting demons in any guise and eternally kindling the flames of the Imperium's victories. Or, conversely, some dark entities influence the world such that only a very few possess the resilience of spirit to join the Grey Knights. The Immaculate Soul is not only a defining characteristic of the Grey Knights, but also their most potent weapon. When combined with the immense psychic powers of the Sons of Titan, such purity of mind and emotions transforms into a sacred flame that incinerates the bodies and souls of unworthy foes. The fire is drawn to sources of evil, and few minions of darkness can survive in such blessed burning. The icy hatred of the demons turns against them, consuming the creatures from within. Each of these chapters carries its unique legacy, be it faith, duty, or curse. They stand on the front line, facing threats that ordinary warriors cannot even conceive. Yet it is they who become the final barrier between the Imperium and the forces seeking to destroy it. Regardless of what drives these chapters, their feats will forever remain part of the great and bloody history of the Imperium. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to not miss new stories about the grim future of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Share your thoughts in the comments. Which of these chapters impressed you the most, and which would you like to learn about in the next videos?